What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my official game picks and predictions heading into Week 5 of the 2025 college football season. We do got some games coming up tomorrow night and basically the rest of the weekend, and I gotta tell you, this is going to be a huge weekend of college football. So many great games, and also 10 games to choose from where I'm going to give you my score predictions for some of these games. Not that the score really matters. What really matters is I'm picking the team who I think is going to win. Looking back at my picks and predictions from last week, I went 7-3 again, so that's the second week in a row that I went 7-3. I haven't gone 8-2, 9-1, or even 10-0 throughout this series that I've been doing it since last year. So we'll see if we go undefeated this week, which I think that's very unlikely, but we could probably go even like 5-5 or even like 6-4 for that matter. But let's get into these picks and predictions here for Week 5, and I did pick out 10 of the biggest games here for this weekend in my opinion. So let's jump right into it. We're going to start here with a Friday night game, and it's Florida State at Virginia. This one will be on ESPN coming up tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Florida State sitting as a 6.5 point favorite. The over and under sitting at 59.5. Florida State is 3-0. Really, we don't really know a ton about the Seminoles just yet. Yes, they beat Alabama in Week 1, but that was kind of an early season feel. And Florida State obviously ran the football down Alabama's throats. And again, that was Week 1, so we still don't know a ton about Florida State. They had an early bye week, pretty much after 2 weeks of playing, and then they were back in action this past weekend and coming off a big win. So yeah, Florida State really hasn't been tested since the Alabama game. And then on the other side, Virginia's been a pretty solid football team. They're 3-1. They're definitely capable of pulling off an upset here, but I just think this is a game where, it's close for a while. It's probably going to be a game that goes into the fourth quarter, but I think Florida State probably pulls away sometime in the fourth quarter. But this is a Friday night game. Upsets can happen here on these Friday night games anytime, any place, and that's also the case for Thursday night games, and if you just want to call it weeknight games like that. So I think Florida State does pull away sometime in the fourth quarter, and I think they win it by a couple of touchdowns at least. So I'm going to go Florida State in this one, 38-24. The final score prediction here for me, which I don't really think that's going to happen. I mean, it could be a game that really does come down to the wire, and it could be a game where Virginia does pull off a shocker. Next up, another Friday night game. This one is also Friday night, tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Eastern Time on Fox. TCU traveling to Arizona State. Arizona State sitting at a 2.5 point favorite. Over and under is at 55.5. TCU ranked number 24th in the AP poll. This team has been impressive so far, coming off a pretty good win against SMU 35-24 last week. And then Arizona State beat Baylor last week 27-24. So yeah, the difference was from last week, Arizona State had a pretty close game, and then TCU had a win by double digits by 11. I think these two teams are pretty much dead even. Every team in the Big 12 is even, but these two teams look like most even teams in this conference. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think it really does come down to the wire, but it is a Friday night, and it's at home here for Arizona State. I wouldn't really call it an upset because TCU obviously is a ranked team, but Arizona State is favored at the same time. But I think home field advantage really is the difference here. Again, you got two really good quarterbacks here, and Josh Hoover and Sam Levitt going at it. I think this is a really competitive game. It probably does go into a shootout here, but I'm going to go with the Sun Devils to win this game. I think they win it by 3. I'm going 31-28 in favor of Arizona State. I think they get this win, and I think that probably does give them back on track, as being the front runners in the Big 12. Because as of right now, I think TCU and Texas Tech, they could be the teams that are, pretty much, to beat in the Big 12 this year. So I think Arizona State wins this game 31-28. Next up, we have Ohio State at Washington. This will be at 3:30 Eastern Time on Saturday on CBS. Ohio State's favored by 9.5. So Ohio State had a bye week this past week. They're the number 1 ranked team in the country, but are they for real the number 1 ranked team in the country? Well, I think we're going to find out a little bit about Ohio State in this game because this is their 4th game. I mean, obviously you need like 4 or 5 games to really figure teams out. On the other side, Washington's a pretty solid football team at 3-0. We don't really know much about them. This is also their first real test of the season. But, the problem is for the Buckeyes, they have to travel out west here, which obviously it can give teams some trouble. We've seen that, of course, in the past, since last year. The teams that travel out west, that tends to give teams some trouble. So I think Ohio State definitely will have a little bit of trouble in this game, but I think, Ohio State's still a better team than Washington. And like I said, I don't know a ton about the Huskies. I haven't watched them a lot this year. I probably will watch this game on Saturday because I will want to learn about them. But I think Ohio State does win. I think it's kind of similar to the Florida State game. I think the Buckeyes will probably pull away sometime in the second half. And I think they win this one 28-17 is what I'm going to go with here for the final score of this matchup. So I think Ohio State does survive a trip to Seattle in the Pacific time zone here on this Saturday, September the 27th. Let's go now to the next game. We got LSU at Ole Miss. This one is also at 3:30 Eastern Time on ABC. And by the way, Ole Miss is favored by half a point. So, that was in the upset alert video from yesterday. And I was, really surprised still that the Rebels were favored, when this spread came out again today. So, this is a top 15 matchup. It's a revenge game here for the Rebels after losing last year in Death Valley. I mean, Ole Miss last year looked like the better team, and they still lost to LSU in Death Valley. For LSU, I really don't think they've played their best game yet. Yeah, they have a win over Clemson, but it's not a great win. And I think the real LSU team probably did show up there, but their offense hasn't really clicked in. I mean, that offense was expected to do a bunch this year, but it hasn't clicked in yet. Maybe it finally clicks into this game against Ole Miss, and that's what I'm going to go with. I think LSU we'll finally see the real LSU show up here this weekend. I think it really does come down to Ole Miss's, defense. If they can do what they did last week to Tulane and, hold LSU to lesser points, and they got a pretty good shot here to win this game. It would be an upset because LSU is a top 5 team, but at the same time, LSU is an underdog. I think because it's in Oxford, Mississippi, but I got to go with LSU. I think LSU is the more better team here, and I think they win this one. They probably pulled away sometime in the 4th quarter, and I think LSU wins it 38-27, the final score in this top 15 SEC showdown. Next up, we have another SEC game, Auburn at Texas A&M. This one's at 3:30 Eastern Time as well. Texas A&M favored by 6.5. You got an Auburn team that is coming off a very tough loss to Oklahoma. What did they come in a little bit beat up in this one against the Aggies? This is a very tough place to play. It's on the road again, so this is the second time in a row that Auburn has to play back-to-back road games. And Texas A&M is coming off a bye week, so that might help them out here in this one. Texas A&M obviously will be out for revenge. This was a great game last year. I do expect another great game out of both of these teams, but I think Texas A&M playing at home, that's really the difference here. I think this will be a close game, pretty similar to last year, but not a shootout. I think Texas A&M's defense will make a big stop here. I think a couple plays really decide this game, so I'm going to go with the Aggies here. And when it comes to those lower scoring games, 2 big plays decided. A turnover, it could be a punt return for a touchdown, or it could be something else, like maybe a big turnover, like I said, and then probably a special teams play. So Texas A&M, I'm going to go with them in this one, 24-20. The final score here, they beat Auburn at home and get revenge here on the Tigers from last year's game. Next up, Indiana at Iowa. This is also another 3:30 Eastern Time game, and this one is on Peacock, so you won't be able to watch it, which is kind of disappointing. Indiana, though, favored by 7.5 in this one. Indiana coming off a dominating victory against Illinois last week, scoring 63 points. This is a pretty good Indiana team, so I feel like the 3 non-conference games that they played was a bit of a fluke. They were probably not taking those games seriously. And then when it came to Big Ten play, I think they just really took Illinois seriously and just put up a dominant performance. And they made a massive statement in this game. But you look at the other side, this Iowa team is a pretty solid team at 3-1. They're coming off a win against Rutgers this past Friday night. So they've had a little bit of time to prepare for this game more than Indiana has. I mean, it could be where Iowa definitely has the advantage because of, preparedness and everything. But, yeah, the Hawkeyes, though, they're definitely capable of pulling off an upset. But I do trust Kirk Zanetti to get the job done here. I mean, I'm not really expecting Indiana to do what they did last week, but I do expect a close game. I think Indiana, though, does pull out, and I think they do win this one by 7 points. So I'm going 27-20. I don't think Indiana scores 60 points like they did last week, but you never know. Indiana can surprise anybody. They could probably score 40 points or maybe 50 points because they did that, to some of the lesser teams in the Big Ten last year. And I don't think Iowa is a bad team just based off of what they've done so far. But yeah, playing on the road, that's going to be a little bit tricky here for Indiana. But I think they do pull it out, and I think they do win on the road 27-20, the final score in this one. Next up, Tennessee at Mississippi State. This one is on the SEC Network at 4:15 Eastern Time. Tennessee favored by 7.5. I was still very surprised by this spread here, being a little bit high for a road game here for Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee is a top 15 team, and Mississippi State is not getting a ton of credit for what they've done so far this year. I think this is a sneaky good Mississippi State team. They're 4-0. They've beaten already Arizona State, which I think Tennessee is a little bit better than Arizona State is, which that does kind of make sense. And Tennessee's already played a couple of, Power 4 teams to begin with. That Syracuse win looks a little bit better now. They should have beaten Georgia, though. Like I said in the upset alert video, they should have beaten Georgia a couple weeks ago because if they would have won that game, they would have had momentum probably going the rest of the way. But this is a tough one here for me to call. I do favor Tennessee because of the talent, but because it's a road game and it's the first road game here of the season for Tennessee, I don't think Joey Aguilar is ready for that experience, and I think Mississippi State, they are playing at home. The Cowbells will be rolling, and I think this is a game that does come into a shootout. Normally, I do trust Josh Heupel in shootouts, but because it's on the road, very tough place to play, and how Mississippi State's been playing this year, I think Mississippi State actually does it. I think they do pull off a big upset here, and I'm going to go with the Bulldogs here, like I said, in a shootout. 37-34, the final score in this matchup. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee does win, but at the same time, the Bulldogs, I think they kind of show us that they are definitely for real, and Blake Shapen kind of shows us that he's not gone away ever since his injury from last year. Next up, we have Arizona at Iowa State, another Big 12 matchup, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Iowa State's favored by 6.5. This one is on ESPN. Iowa State is 4-0. They're coming off of a bye week this past week. Are they a true top 15 team? I really don't think so because they haven't really proven it that. They haven't really proven that they're a top 15 team. Yeah, this is a pretty good football team, but their wins that teams that they've beaten this year, Kansas State win does not look good for them, and then obviously the Iowa win. That's probably their best win of the season so far, and that was a 3-point win for Iowa State, and they're coming off a flat performance against Arkansas State a couple weeks ago. Do we finally see the real Iowa State team here show up? But you look at the other side. Arizona is definitely capable of pulling off an upset here. It's the Big 12. Anything can happen in this conference, but I think Iowa State playing at home, I think that's the difference here. Home field advantage will be the difference, and I think Iowa State's defense shows up here, and I think that's what really keeps them, pulling away in this game. So I think Iowa State wins it 21-13, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Wildcats, did pull off the upset here because Iowa State really hasn't proven that much as a pretty good team so far. But I got to go with the Cyclones here because they're playing at home. That's the difference in my opinion. And then next up, we have one of those two big games coming up this weekend. We got Oregon at Penn State. This is at 7:30 Eastern time on NBC. Penn State favored by 3.5. You know, in the preseason, I picked Penn State here to win this game because of the home field advantage, but this is kind of a tough one now. It's a really tough game here for me to pick. I mean, obviously, Penn State, we haven't seen the real Penn State teams show up yet because they played a weak non-conference schedule, and I think that's the same thing here for Oregon, but Oregon's played pretty good football in the first 4 games of the season. Really, they haven't been tested yet either, and this is also their second road game. You know, they played Northwestern on the road, but that's not a very tough place to play. This will be their first true road game, and it will be the toughest place that they'll play so far this season. And this is also Dante Moore's first true road environment, in my opinion. So I think it really does come down to which quarterback that you do trust the most, and I think it's also going to come down to defense as well. And a couple plays could decide this game, so I'm going to stick with my preseason pick. I'm going to say that Penn State does win it here because of the home field advantage, and the crowd will be fired up for this one. It's a night game. And it's also the whiteout, so you could expect Penn State to be really fired up for their fans, and I think Penn State does win it. I do trust Drew Aller a little bit more than Dante Moore. I know Dante Moore has played pretty well, but I think he's definitely going to feel the effects of a very tough road environment and also his first real test as a starting quarterback here for the Ducks. And then finally, we have Alabama at Georgia on 7:30 Eastern time on ABC. So this is the primetime ABC kickoff. Georgia favored by 2.5 in this one. Alabama, in week 1 did not look good against Florida State in that first big test for them, but that was just week 1. And we kind of saw the real Alabama a couple weeks ago against Wisconsin. So Alabama definitely, I think, will be ready for this one. For Georgia, they did escape, of course, a couple weeks ago against Tennessee. Again, I think Georgia definitely should have lost that game because Tennessee, I feel like, was the better team, and Georgia's defense did not play pretty well, but their offense, I thought, got it going, and Gunnar Stockton looks like a real deal here for the Bulldogs. Both of these teams coming out of a bye week, I had a very tough time picking this game during the offseason, and I'm still going to stick with my preseason pick. I do trust Kirby Smart here to get the job done, and plus, this is a revenge game here for Georgia. I mean, obviously, Georgia, they come in fired up and play their best game, and they probably win this one by double digits, but I do expect a close game here. A couple of plays really decide it here in this low-scoring game. I'm going to go with Georgia, though. 27-24, the final score in this big-time matchup. So those are all my game picks and predictions heading into Week 5 of this 2025 college football season. What do you guys think about these 10 games? Give me your picks and prediction for these 10 games down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.